Hi, everybody. Bill Phillips here. It is a Wednesday, and it's Prince Spaghetti Day in the North End of Boston, and we are joined by a man that knows about pasta. It is the coach, Tony Filberto. He'll be doing the game. I'm not sure exactly what we're calling it, but we're going to be hopefully doing a game this weekend featuring Big Red streaming. But Coach Filberto, a man that has coached for years across the Ohio Valley, has had tremendous success. He's just a superhuman being. And, Coach, welcome to the 9-Minute Phill-Up.
Well, Bill, it's always a pleasure to spend any time with you. We have a lot of fun doing the ball games together, so I'm sure we'll enjoy ourselves today.
All right. Well, we're going to talk some high school football, and one of the things we do, Coach, before we get started, we always mention Valley Converting, our sponsor for the 9-Minute Phill-Up, of course, located in the gem city of Toronto, T-Town. If you have paper products that need recycling, make sure you head to there or give them a call. Say, hey, what do I need to do to bring this paper up so you can turn it into something else? If you bring enough of that paper, you can actually get a little scratch out of it. So give them a call. They'll take care of you. They have all the information you need to know. And right now, let's hear a quick message from them. We're going to get into high school football with Coach Filberto.
Every piece of paper has a story. What if that story didn't end when you were done with it?
At Valley Converting, we turn your old paper products into recycled paperboard, continuing the story.
Locally owned and operated in Toronto, Ohio, bringing your paper to Valley Converting isn't just about recycling.
It's about supporting a cleaner, greener future for all of us.
We are here 5 days a week to help you make some green by going green.
And remember,
recycle for your future.
Mike Biasi and the crew up in Toronto. Again, can't thank them enough. And if you want to make comments today, have any questions for Coach Filberto, please don't hesitate to get in our comment board. And again, we thank everybody each and every day for checking in with us on the 9-Minute Phill-Up. And today I just thought, we usually talk about national days and all that stuff, but this is a big story, especially for the Ohio Valley. High school football is something that people love around the Ohio Valley. People support and people want to see, especially when it comes to playoff time. And Coach Filberto, Coach, I know you coached at Oak Glen, you coached at Weir. That was the interesting thing when we covered. Coach, you're working with Oak Glen this year, and then down the road you were working with Weir, and you're going back and forth. I'm thinking you're in the rivalry game. You're more in the mix than anybody.
I was, and I really enjoyed both places. I was very fortunate. I had great players, great cooperation, and we had a little bit of success and really enjoyed ourselves both places.
And just in case you don't know, Coach Filberto, an outstanding player in his day, a Hall of Famer at West Liberty, Coach. It's something I think I'm contractually obligated to say whenever we talk in a broadcast setting, that you are a Hall of Famer. So you sign all of your checks HOF.
Yeah, well, I always tell my family I'm almost famous, but I still get to take the garbage out on Monday morning. That's how famous I am. West Liberty time was a great time. We had great teams. I was surrounded by a lot of really good players, which made me a better player, and I did have some success.
Well, some teams that want to have some success are the West Virginia high school teams this year that have qualified for the postseason. But right now, it seems like the playoffs are a bit in limbo, Coach, as there have been a number of injunctions filed around the state of West Virginia where high schools that they changed the classifications and they're not happy with it. These were set back in August, but now that the playoffs are here and some teams have either been left out or perhaps they don't have a home game, or for whatever the reason is, there have been a number of teams that have filed in the courts, and they've gotten injunctions. So the state has to wait until the courts give them a go-ahead. How does that impact what you're trying to do as a coach and players? I would imagine you're focused on what you want to do, practice and everything. But as a coach, when this happens, how do you keep the kids motivated to get through practice when they're not sure when their next game is going to be? And it's been a long season already, but now it's going to be extended a little bit further.
Well, first of all, this is a very sad situation. We are in the kids business at this level. At high school football, we're in the kids business. Kids have worked very hard, and they all have this goal. Everybody wants to be the state champion. And, you promise your kids if, hard work guarantees the opportunity for success. And right now, that opportunity has sort of been taken away from them. Now, how do I approach it if I'm in that situation? You have to keep practicing with the plan that you're going to play the people that you were scheduled to play. And if it changes, we're all at the same disadvantage.
Now, what just your thought? My thought on this initially was when I saw it was at the end of the story that we did. It said, this was set forth back in August. If there was an issue with this, I would have thought that perhaps the schools should have brought that up back in August, not until the playoffs.
I'm not an attorney, very far from one, but I don't think you can file an injunction until there's some harm that's been done. Now, but maybe. But
I just mean in the back and forth between the state and the schools when they were making this decision. If they thought there was going to be any impact. I think I would have stood up then and said, this doesn't make any sense for us. We may not get as many home games, or, whatever the case may be. So I would, if you were back in the situation when you were working as a coach and working in the schools, what would you have said during those initial meetings? Or is it one of those things, well, maybe we've got a good draw here, we should be okay?
Well, we have to look at the big picture, okay? And we're really smart about yesterday. So we can't say, well, this impact us one way and not the other, so we're happy with it. We have to take ourselves back to August. And I think if we would have looked at it then, we'd say, what problems are we going to create in November at playoff time? Because somebody's going to be very unhappy. Now, 14, 15 days before the season, we're reclassifying people. You're changing point totals and so on. I think it was a perfect recipe for some confusion.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like instead of doing it late in the summer, and I know how negotiations go and the way things change is when it gets closer to that deadline, it seems like that gets people motivated to get something done. But this sounds like something that could have started maybe back at the beginning of the new year in 2024. So it's done and set in place before summer workouts begin. And now, how many people do Coach? If you go to talk to the West Virginia, board, is that a board of 10, 20? How many people would normally be or could be involved in that?
Well, they have an executive board, which has another board that they're responsible to. I know I've been in some of those meetings where there would be 12, 14, 16 people. So that's a lot of people to get together at one time to agree upon something. But I think if I'm making that decision, I got to make it in January, February. These are our classifications. And this is what we're going to live with. And it's pretty hard to convince a number of people 15 days before the season to agree upon something.
And they also agreed upon moving the state championships from Wheeling back to Charleston. It hasn't been there in about 30 years. So they had a lot of changes going on at the same time. All right, I know we can't put ourselves in that room back in the day to figure out what they were thinking. But as you look at this from an outsider's perspective that has, an insider's knowledge of how the workings are, do you think it was a mistake to change the classifications, or do you think the classification changes were needed? It just maybe they needed ironed out and thought out a little bit, lack of a better way, clearer as you went to implement them?
Well, I like the four classes, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And because it puts some of the bigger schools together and it makes some of your smaller schools down in single A more competitive, where they aren't competing with the bigger single A schools. So you spread it out. Maybe we have too many playoff games. Maybe it should be the top 12 making it,
Mhm.
and, play into an 8. So there's a lot of different opinions there, but I do like the 4 playoff system. But I think once you come up with a plan, I don't think you can be making changes so late in the game. The sad part of this thing is, Friday night, some kid made a great play to get his team into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Saturday morning, it didn't mean as much. It
Yeah.
was important to his team. It was important to he and his school and his community. But somebody else is saying, but you're not going to get in the playoffs now. So there's there's going to be a lot of unhappy people, no matter how this thing turns out. So many are going to be happy and so many are going to be unhappy.
Let's see, Coach. I've got a question from Ron. He checks in all the time on the 9-minute Phill-Up. He is always on point. And let's see here. Can this delay affect the team's momentum that they were playing winning football with? And as you know, Coach, better than anybody, and some people say, in baseball, the momentum's only as good as your next starting pitcher. And then next week in football, the momentum from last week really doesn't matter. But we both know that that's not true. I mean, you get a team that's on a roll, a team that's close-knit, team that's playing together, that can be huge. So to Ron's question, what do you think about that for some teams that maybe got on a bit of a roll to get in, or maybe they were a mid-level team, they get on a roll, maybe they finish in the top 4, top 5, and now all of a sudden they're a real contender?
I always prided our teams that we were always at our best week 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so that's when you want to be good, getting ready for the playoffs. But then again, you got to remember, I always took week 11 off so our kids could heal, rest, and get that next season going. So that's a 2-week span that they weren't playing football. Now, if it's postponed 1 week, that's a 3-week span that they're not playing football. Okay, that's a long time not to be in a competitive situation. You do lose your momentum. You do lose that edge. You do lose that high that those kids have coming out of the positive end of the season and so on. So yes, I agree. Kids will lose, or teams will lose some momentum the longer we wait.
And the other thing that happens too, Coach, is this: you can be in shape, but you're not necessarily in football shape. Football shape, you get used to the hitting, you get used to the mentality of it, and all of a sudden you take 3 weeks off, even though you just can't replicate it in practice.
You can't. I mean, there's nothing like playing a game. And, we can practice every day till you get game time. You don't get better. Okay, now if you're going to lay off 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or however long this is going to be, you're going to get out of that shape, and your body is. We got to consider a safety issue here. What have we done with our kids? Because you can't beat them up every day in practice, keeping them in that physical part of this thing. Now we're going to put them in a ball game 3 weeks later and ask them to block, to tackle, and do all the physical things in the football game.
Now, if we're looking for a silver lining, Coach, I just thought of one based off of your answer. If you have some kids that were maybe banged up a little bit, and maybe you have a couple weeks to rest, all of a sudden those guys might be ready to go come game time if it is a 3-week break or a 2-week break. But I wouldn't want to bank on that necessarily.
No, I agree with that, because that was one of the reasons that I took week 11, so we could get some kids maybe a little healthier, get rid of the soreness, the bumps, and the bruises. But how many of those kids are impacted that way? What's the real benefit of 10 kids getting better and 1,000 kids not playing football on Friday night? So it's a numbers thing. Then you got to look at what's happening to basketball and wrestling and our sports. That's delaying that now also. So it's going to be a major impact.
It's a domino effect. So a sad situation in West Virginia as we get ready for the postseason. We're talking to the coach, Tony Filiberto, Hall of Famer from West Liberty as a player, outstanding coach in the Ohio Valley for years. He is also an analyst with WTOV9 on our games, the Friday night rivals and the Thursday night lights matchups. And Coach, before we let you go, West Virginia will be off this week. Ohio will not. and a couple of teams that we'll be looking at. And it's a game that you went and saw earlier this year. You called the game. Dover and Steubenville Big Red. Steubenville Big Red comes in the higher seeded team. The game will be played in Carrollton. As you look at how the season ended for both of these teams, Big Red won undefeated, won their first playoff game, or won their first 2 playoff games now, right? Yeah, 2 playoff games. And Dover last week, talk about end of the game heroics. They win on a last-second field goal. As you look back on the game that they played the first time around and forward to Friday night, how do you see this playing out? What do you think some of the keys are going to be for this game?
Well, I always think it's interesting when a team in football plays an opponent twice. The team that won says, we did the right things, let's keep doing it. Now, the team that lost says, okay, now there's some things to correct that we need to change. Now you're talking about 2 quality programs, 2 quality coaches. Who's won more football games than the 2 coaches in the Dover Big Red game?
Not many.
Not many. That's correct. And so the approach, I'm real anxious to see. We expected Dover to come out throwing the football. They controlled the game with a run game through the first quarter and quarter and a half of the last game that we saw. So I'm excited to see any changes or how the coaches are going to approach this game.
So that should be an interesting game. That's coming up Friday. Another game, it'll be St. Clairsville back in action in week number 3, playing Licking Valley off the top of my head. And they are the higher seed as well in that one. And St. Clairsville, Coach, they've put together another outstanding season.
I was fortunate. I get to see them twice this year in person. We did the games and so on. And they're good. I mean, they're good. Coach McLean does a knockout job for 21 years now, and I mean they can run it, they can throw it. They're great on defense. I don't see a weakness. You can never control who your opponent is and how good they are. But St. Clairsville was a good football team.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have their opponent right, but I don't have it right in front of me, so I apologize if that was incorrect. But Coach, it is a fantastic time of the year. It's the high school football playoffs. College football is right in the thick of things. The National Football League getting towards, as Coach Tomlin for the Steelers always says, when the rubber meets the road. So just a lot going on. Is this your prime time when the season gets to this point where you just sit back and go, okay, I can really enjoy this now?
I love it. I always had a goal, and I would talk to the kids, and you would understand this. I said, there's nothing better than practicing on Thanksgiving morning.
Amen.
It's cool, it's crisp. Your teams. I mean, we would have hundreds of people come and watch us practice. Normally, we would have alumni come back. People come back, and then you go home and you smell that turkey cooking, and you know that you're probably to the state semifinals or possibly the finals by then. So a goal was practice on Thanksgiving Day. This is a great time of the year.
Absolutely. Nothing better than practicing on the Thanksgiving Day, and it is November football, which just seems appropriate for any big-time football games. And Ron has checked back in. He says it seems like there is more value to having a good kicker in high school than any other level because they can be a game changer. And we see it with some of the kickers, Coach, that can put it in the end zone, so it's an automatic touchback on kickoffs. And then if they can it doesn't necessarily have to be 40-yard field goals, but if you can stay on 7, make your extra points, and then if you're called upon to make a field goal, that's a bonus. But if you can just stay on 7, so you're 7, 14, 21, then you don't have to chase the points. So I think Ron's got a great point.
And absolutely right. And who would know more about kicking than you? You and your son both have done an outstanding job with a number of kickers in this Ohio Valley.
Thank you, Coach.
Being outstanding kickers yourselves and so on. But he's absolutely right. And I always say, the first day I come home from practice, one of the questions my wife would ask me is, do you have a kicker? She knows what impact it's had on our games in the years past. And you're right. If you can get every score to end up with a positive 1 point, you're on track. So I totally agree with you. And but I have to defer to you because you know a lot more about kicking than I do.
I don't believe that for a second, Coach, but I thank you for the compliment. And I just leave it all up to Ian. He's the guy. All right. Well, Coach, I'm gonna let you get going because I know you've got better stuff to do than talk to me because you may have to be talking to me Friday night for a bunch of hours talking high school football. But we love that, don't we? We love talking to each other.
I enjoy it, and we always share a little candy during this thing also, and everyone else. So we enjoy ourselves. We have a lot of fun, and that's what high school football is about.
Absolutely,
kids having fun. It's a kids' game, and we have to keep approaching it that way.
And if you do see Coach on a Friday night during high school football season, you're looking for a little Werther's with some, cream filling it's just perfect. He's your guy. He's your guy. You may walk away with 20 pieces of candy, but he's your guy. I mean, it's good stuff. Everybody at the truck sees Coach coming. Ooh, but what's he have this week? So we'll be looking forward to seeing what that is. But Coach, I can't thank you enough for getting on. And again, Coach Filberto has joined us, Tony Filberto, and Coach again talking about the West Virginia playoffs being postponed for this week due to injunctions being filed over the class situation in many of the towns across West Virginia. So we'll have to wait and see when the playoffs start. In Ohio, they continue this week. And Coach, we are looking forward to that and hopefully looking forward to West Virginia getting started very, very shortly. But I can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing your expertise and just the insider part of the game when it comes to teams and meeting with officials across the state, because you had to do that for years and years and years. So can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Bill. It's always a pleasure, spending time with you, and I'm looking forward to Friday night, the two of us working together for the Dover Big Red game.
All right, Coach. Greatly appreciate it. We'll talk to you then.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Coach. All right. Tony Filberto, the former head coach of both Oakland and Weir. Outstanding coach, outstanding player as well. And we can't thank him enough for joining us to talk some high school football and what's going on with the state of West Virginia, where we are in a delay because of injunctions and the teams are unhappy with the classifications, how that worked out. It was all set back in August, but it has reared its ugly head in terms of the courtroom. So we'll have to wait and see how that all works itself out. But then with the Ohio playoffs, they continue this Friday with more great games coming up. So it's going to be an interesting night for Friday night in Ohio high school football, while in West Virginia, we will have to wait for judges to make decisions across the mountain state of West Virginia. But we are out of time for right now. Jordan is giving me the signal. Wrap it up. Let's go. And let's see. It was supposed to be 9 minutes. What, 24? That was all right. Coach is a talker. He likes to talk. We have a great time talking. So if you can, check us out Friday night for the game. And that's going to do it for today. Ron, thanks for checking in with your comments. Greatly appreciate it. Again, want to thank Valley Converting for sponsoring the 9-Minute Phill-Up. But until next time, everybody, we're going to say so long. And remember the two rules: have fun and always try your best. Thanks for joining us, everyone.